A father's love can be a warm blanket. It can also be a sharp, dangerous knife. I did not know this when I was 22. My name is Chloe. I was the only daughter of Richard, a very wealthy and powerful businessman. I lived in a beautiful, safe world. My world became perfect when I met Julian. He was a young, poor architect. He had no money, but he had a beautiful smile and a romantic heart. I fell deeply in love with him. Surprisingly, my strict father liked him too. My father gave us his happy blessing. We planned a massive, beautiful wedding. Everything was absolutely perfect. One evening, my father hosted a huge engagement party at our grand mansion. Hundreds of rich guests attended the event. Julian smiled and held my hand tightly. Then, Julian's mother finally arrived at the party. Julian's mother was a quiet, sick woman. She wore a cheap, simple dress. She walked nervously into the bright, expensive room. My father was smiling and drinking a glass of red wine. He turned around to greet her. Suddenly, his happy smile completely disappeared. My father's face turned pale white. He looked like he had seen a terrifying ghost. His hands started to shake violently. He stared at Julian's mother with wide, angry eyes. The quiet woman looked back at him, her face full of pure, silent fear. The music continued playing, but a cold silence fell over our family. Without saying a single word, my father raised his hand. He threw his full glass of red wine directly into the poor woman's face. The dark red liquid dripped down her cheap dress like thick blood. "You are disgusting garbage," my father screamed at her. His loud voice echoed through the large, quiet room. The rich guests gasped in pure shock. I stood frozen, completely paralyzed by my father's sudden, violent madness. I could not understand what was happening to my perfect night. "Get out of my house," my father yelled like a crazy monster. He pointed his finger at Julian and his crying mother. He quickly called his strong security guards. "Throw these dirty rats out into the street. Never let them near my daughter again." The guards grabbed Julian and his mother roughly. They dragged them out of the heavy front doors. I cried and tried to stop them, but my father held my arm tightly. His grip was cruel and painful. My beautiful dream wedding was suddenly turning into a terrible, dark nightmare. I looked into my father's eyes. I expected to see a loving parent. Instead, I saw a cold, ruthless dictator. He did not care about my tears. He did not care about my broken heart. The bloody banquet was over, and the dark curse of my family had just begun. The next morning, I was a prisoner in my own home. My father locked me inside my large bedroom. He refused to explain his terrible actions. He just looked at me with cold eyes and said my wedding was permanently canceled. He froze all my personal bank accounts immediately. I cried on my bed for hours. I felt completely trapped and helpless. Later that afternoon, I heard heavy footsteps in the hallway. My father had invited Julian back to the mansion for a private meeting. I pressed my ear against my locked bedroom door, trying to listen. My father did not know I was listening. He spoke to Julian in a cruel, businesslike voice. "You are a poor, worthless boy," my father said coldly. "I will never let you marry my daughter. I want you to leave this city and never come back." Then I heard the sound of paper sliding across a wooden desk. "This is a bank check for $5 million, my father told Julian. "Take this money. Forget about Chloe. If you stay, I will destroy your life completely. Take the money and disappear." My heart stopped beating. $5 million was a massive fortune. Any poor man would take that money and run away. I held my breath, waiting for Julian's answer. Suddenly, my mobile phone rang in my pocket. Julian was calling me from inside my father's office. I answered the phone quickly. Julian had secretly turned on his speakerphone so I could hear everything clearly. "Keep your dirty money, Richard." Julian's voice echoed through the phone and the hallway. "My love for Chloe is completely real. You cannot buy my heart with your ugly wealth." Then I heard a loud, beautiful ripping sound. Julian was tearing the $5 million check into tiny pieces. He threw the ripped paper into my father's face. "I am leaving now," Julian said proudly. "And I am taking Chloe with me." Tears of pure joy flooded my face. Julian had passed the ultimate test. He chose my love over millions of dollars. My father started shouting angrily, but Julian walked out of the office. I quickly packed a small bag with my simplest clothes. I was ready to escape. Julian climbed up the tall tree outside my bedroom window. He helped me climb down into the dark, quiet garden. We ran across the wet grass, holding hands tightly. We did not have any money or a safe place to go, but we had each other. I looked back at the grand mansion one last time. I promised myself I would never speak to my cruel father again. He tried to buy my happiness and destroy my true love. I left my rich life behind, stepping into the dark night to follow my romantic hero. 5 long, difficult years passed. Julian and I lived in a tiny, cheap apartment. We ate simple food and worked incredibly hard every single day. We built a small interior design company from nothing. Despite the struggles, we were happy. We even had a beautiful baby girl named Lily. Our company slowly started to grow. We created beautiful, modern designs for local shops. I handled the creative work and Julian managed the money. Everything seemed perfect until a dark cloud suddenly covered our business. We started losing our biggest, most important contracts without any clear reason. A mysterious, massive corporation was stealing all our clients. They offered our clients incredibly cheap prices that we could never match. They were slowly, deliberately pushing our small company into total bankruptcy. I spent many sleepless nights worrying about how to buy milk for baby Lily. One evening, Julian came home looking exhausted and very angry. He threw a stack of legal papers onto our small kitchen table. "I found out who is destroying us, Chloe," he said, his voice shaking with pure hatred. "I hired a friend to investigate that mysterious corporation." I looked at the legal papers. My blood turned completely to ice. The mysterious corporation was registered to a famous lawyer in the city. It was my father's personal lawyer. The truth hit me like a heavy stone. My father was still hunting me from the dark shadows. "He wants to destroy us," Julian shouted, pacing around the small room. "He wants you to fail. He wants you to crawl back to his mansion and beg for his money. He is a cruel, evil monster who cannot accept that we are happy without him." I hugged my crying baby tightly. My hatred for my father grew even deeper. He had 5 years to forgive me, but he chose to spend his time plotting my destruction. He wanted to starve his own granddaughter just to prove that he was powerful. I promised Julian I would work twice as hard. I stayed awake all night drawing new designs. I drank cheap coffee and ignored my deep exhaustion. I wanted to prove to my father that his dirty money could not break my strong spirit. I was fighting for my family. But while I was working myself to the bone, I did not notice the strange changes in Julian. He started leaving the apartment late at night. He said he was meeting new, secret investors to save our company. He smelled like expensive cologne, not like a struggling, poor architect. I trusted him completely. I thought we were fighting the same war against my cruel father. I thought our love was an unbreakable shield. But I was completely blind to the terrifying, sharp cracks forming in the beautiful mask of my perfect husband. I was incredibly tired. My eyes burned from staring at my computer screen all day and night. Julian was rarely home anymore. He always carried his black laptop with him, claiming he was busy protecting our company. I took care of baby Lily and tried to survive the stress. One rainy afternoon, Julian left in a hurry. He forgot his black laptop on the kitchen table. The battery was low, so I plugged it into the charger. The screen lit up automatically. Julian had forgotten to log out of his private email account. I saw something completely strange. There was an email from an international bank. The subject line said, "Large transfer successful." My heart beat a little faster. Why was Julian receiving emails from a foreign bank? Our small company only used a local community bank. I clicked on the email with a shaking finger. The email showed a massive transfer of $2 million into an offshore account. I gasped loudly. Where did that money come from? Our company was almost bankrupt. I quickly opened his financial spreadsheets. I saw terrible, confusing numbers. My perfect husband had been hiding a massive secret. The company was not failing at all. Our business was actually making a lot of money. Julian had been creating fake ghost projects on paper. He was secretly stealing all the real profits from our business and sending the cash to his own private, hidden bank accounts. I scrolled down the list of stolen money. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely use the mouse. I found the most recent, largest purchase. Julian did not use the stolen money to save our struggling business. He used it to buy a massive, luxury house. The house was located in the most expensive neighborhood in the city. But the property was not registered under his name. It was registered to a woman named Elena. I stared at the bright computer screen, completely paralyzed by shock and deep, agonizing pain. Who was Elena? Why was my husband buying a luxury mansion for a stranger while I worried about buying cheap diapers for our baby? The romantic hero who tore up a $5 million check was suddenly looking like a very greedy, selfish liar. I closed the laptop carefully. I felt sick to my stomach. I did not scream or cry. A cold, dark realization washed over my entire body. My father had warned me about Julian. He said Julian was a poor, worthless boy. Was my father actually right all along? I needed absolute proof before I confronted him. I wiped my face and looked at my sleeping baby girl. I was not a weak, foolish girl anymore. I was a mother, and I was going to find out the dark truth about the man sleeping in my bed. I secretly hired a private investigator the very next morning. I used my last personal savings to pay him. I gave him the address of the luxury house and the name Elena. I told him to follow my husband everywhere. I waited in agony for 3 long, terrible days. On Friday evening, the investigator asked me to meet him in a quiet coffee shop. He looked very serious. He slid a thick, brown envelope across the table. I am sorry, Chloe, the man said softly. Your husband is not the man you think he is. I opened the envelope. Dozens of clear photographs spilled onto the table. They showed Julian smiling and kissing a beautiful, young woman with dark hair. It was Elena. But the most painful picture showed Julian touching Elena's round stomach. She was heavily pregnant with his child. My heart shattered into a million sharp pieces. He was not just cheating on me. He was building an entirely new, rich family using the money I worked day and night to earn. He was a professional, heartless gold digger. But the investigator was not finished with his dark report. There is something much worse, Chloe, the investigator said. He pulled out a copy of an old, canceled bank check. It was the exact same $5 million check my father had offered Julian 5 years ago. I stared at it, completely confused. Julian had ripped this check into pieces. He'd tear it up in the office, the investigator explained. But he picked up all the pieces from the floor before he left. He used clear tape to put the check back together. The bank accepted it. The money was withdrawn 5 years ago. I could not breathe. Who withdrew the money? I asked, my voice cracking. The investigator pointed to a signature on the back of the torn paper. His mother cashed it. She deposited $5 million into her account just 2 days before she passed away from her illness. The entire romantic escape was a perfectly executed, disgusting lie. Julian got the girl and the $5 million. He played a brilliant, evil game. He made me think my father was a monster, so I would cut all ties with my family and trust only him. He isolated me, used my talent to build a company, stole all the profits, and betrayed my love. I felt completely foolish and incredibly angry. My father had seen the truth instantly. My father knew Julian was a fake, greedy liar on the very first day. I paid the investigator and walked out into the cold rain. The illusion of my happy marriage was completely dead. I was ready to face the monster. I was going to throw him out of my life and take back everything he had stolen from me and my daughter. I went home and waited in the dark living room. When Julian finally walked through the door, he smiled his usual, fake smile. I stood up and threw the thick stack of photographs directly into his face. The pictures of him and Elena scattered across the wooden floor. I know everything, I said, my voice cold and hard like steel. I know about the stolen money, the house, and your pregnant mistress. I know you taped my father's check back together. You're a disgusting, pathetic gold digger. I want a divorce, and I want you out of my house. I expected him to drop to his knees. I expected him to cry and beg for my forgiveness. Instead, Julian looked down at the photos and smiled. It was not a nervous smile. It was a dark, evil, and completely psychotic laugh. He kicked the photos away slowly. You want to throw me out? Julian laughed loudly. You cannot throw me out, Chloe. I own this apartment. I own the company. I forced you to sign those new contract papers last month. You legally transferred all your assets to me. You are completely, officially bankrupt. I stared at him in pure shock. He was right. He had tricked me into signing legal documents, claiming they were for taxes. Why? I whispered, tears of anger filling my eyes. Why did you do this to me? Did you ever love me at all? Julian's face turned incredibly cruel. He walked closer to me. Without any warning, he raised his hand and slapped my face extremely hard. I fell backward onto the floor, my cheek burning with sudden, shocking pain. He looked down at me with eyes full of absolute hatred. "I never loved you, you stupid, spoiled little princess," Julian hissed. He bent down and whispered right into my ear. "I did not do this for the money. I did this because you are Richard's daughter. I spent 5 years destroying your life just to hurt your precious father. I took his money, I took his company, and I took his favorite daughter." Julian smiled a terrifying, evil smile. "I ruined the thing he loves most in this world. This was a 5-year plan of pure revenge. Your father destroyed my family, so I completely destroyed his." The super plot twist hit me like a violent train. He was not just a greedy gold digger. He was a calculated, patient monster seeking dark revenge against my father. He used my body, my heart, and my child as weapons in a secret war I knew nothing about. I looked at the stranger standing over me. The romantic architect was completely gone. I quickly scrambled off the floor. I ran into the bedroom and grabbed baby Lily from her small bed. I ran out of the apartment, leaving my entire broken life behind in the dark. I ran out into the cold, heavy rain. I held baby Lily tightly against my chest to keep her warm. I had no money, no company, and no husband. I only had one place left to go. I hailed a cheap taxi and gave the driver the address of my family's grand mansion. I arrived at the massive iron gates. The beautiful mansion looked different. It was dark, quiet, and covered in wild, overgrown grass. It looked like a sad, lonely ghost house. The old butler opened the heavy doors. When he saw me standing in the rain, he started to cry loudly. "Oh, Miss Chloe," the old butler sobbed, leading me inside. "You came back just in time." I felt a sudden, terrible fear. "What is wrong?" I asked quickly. The butler wiped his wet eyes. "Your father is dying. He has stage 4 cancer. He has been fighting it alone for 5 years. My heart dropped into my stomach. My father was dying? He was sick during all the years I hated him? I ran up the grand staircase. I opened the door to his master bedroom. The room smelled like strong medicine. My powerful, intimidating father looked incredibly small and fragile. He was lying in a large bed, connected to many clear medical tubes. He was breathing very heavily. I walked slowly to his bedside. I fell to my knees and cried. "Daddy, I am so sorry," I sobbed loudly. "You were right about Julian. He destroyed me. I am so sorry." I expected him to reach out and touch my hair. I expected him to forgive his prodigal daughter. But my father slowly opened his tired, sick eyes. He looked at me, and then he looked at baby Lily. His face remained completely cold, hard, and unforgiving. He turned his head away from me. He stared blankly at the dark wall. "Go away," my father whispered with a weak, cruel voice. "I told you never to come back. You made your choice. You are a foolish girl. I do not want you in my house." Even on his deathbed, he was rejecting me. He was still acting like a heartless, evil dictator. He refused to accept my apology. I felt a crushing wave of despair. I stood up slowly, wiping my tears. I realized I was truly alone in the world with my baby daughter. I decided to stay in the mansion anyway. He was too weak to force me out. I wanted to care for him during his final days, even if he hated me. I put baby Lily to sleep in my old bedroom. I prepared myself to face the cold, dark silence of my broken family. The next morning, my father slipped into a deep, silent coma. The doctors said he would not wake up again. I sat by his bed, holding his cold hand, wishing I had known the real truth before it was too late to fix our terrible, tragic mistakes. While my father lay in a deep coma, I decided to clean his messy study. The large wooden desk was covered in old, dusty papers. I wanted to find his final will to protect my daughter's future. While moving a heavy painting on the wall, I discovered a hidden steel safe. The safe had a digital keypad. I tried to guess the secret code. I typed in my birthday. A red light flashed. I typed in my mother's birthday and my father's wedding anniversary. Nothing worked. The safe remained completely locked. I sat on the floor, feeling very frustrated. Suddenly, a strange, crazy thought entered my mind. I remembered Julian's arrogant face. My father's life was strangely connected to Julian. With a shaking hand, I typed in Julian's exact birth date. The keypad beeped loudly. A green light flashed, and the heavy steel door clicked open. Why would my father use the birthday of the man he hated most as his secret code? I pulled the heavy door open. Inside the safe, there was no jewelry or gold. There were stacks of thick, organized financial folders. I pulled out the first folder and began to read. My eyes widened in pure, absolute shock. The folders contained detailed bank transfer records. They showed massive amounts of money moving from my father's personal accounts into a mysterious corporation. It was the exact same corporation that I thought was stealing my interior design clients. I read the documents carefully. My father was not stealing my clients to destroy me. He was actually the secret owner of all those businesses. He created the mysterious corporation to secretly buy my design services. He was paying incredibly high prices to ensure my small company survived and succeeded. For 5 years, he secretly funded my entire life from the dark shadows. He made sure I always had enough money to buy food for baby Lily. He protected me while I hated him. He let me believe he was a cruel monster so I would feel proud of my own success. He never abandoned me. He was my silent, invisible guardian angel. Tears of deep gratitude and terrible guilt poured down my face. I had completely misunderstood his harsh actions. But there was one more folder sitting at the very bottom of the dark safe. It was sealed with red tape. The folder had a handwritten label, "My Greatest Sin." I broke the red tape and opened the file. This was not a financial document. It was a private, highly confidential medical report. I pulled out the papers. What I saw on the next page completely changed my entire universe. The mystery of Julian's cruel revenge and my father's violent reaction at the engagement party was finally about to make perfect, horrifying sense. The truth was hiding right there in the black and white medical ink, waiting to explode my life into a million unfixable pieces. I held the confidential medical report with trembling hands. It was an official DNA paternity test. The test was conducted exactly 5 years ago, on the very night of my ruined engagement party. I looked at the names printed clearly on the top of the white paper. The first name was Richard, my father. The second name was Julian. I scanned down to the final result at the bottom of the page. The probability of paternity was 99.9%. My breath caught sharply in my throat. I felt physically sick. The room started spinning around me. Julian was not just a poor architect. He was my father's biological son. He was the secret result of a brief, hidden affair my father had 25 years ago. Julian was my own half-brother. The terrible reality crashed into my brain like a violent, destructive hurricane. Julian knew the truth the whole time. He knew we shared the same blood. He hated my father for abandoning him and his mother in poverty. Julian deliberately seduced me, his own sister, to exact the most twisted, sickening revenge possible against the man who ruined his mother's life. I remembered the night of the engagement party. When my father saw Julian's mother walk into the room, he instantly recognized his old, secret lover. He realized in one terrifying second that his daughter was about to marry his illegitimate son. He was completely horrified by the nightmare. If my father told the truth that night, the scandal would have destroyed our family. The disgusting shame of almost committing incest would have ruined my mental health forever. My father had to stop the wedding immediately, but he could not speak the dirty, ugly truth aloud. So, my father chose to play the villain. He threw the wine. He acted like a cruel, elitist monster. He intentionally made me hate him so I would run away. He gladly accepted my lifelong hatred just to prevent me from making a sickening, unforgivable mistake. He saved my soul. Even on his deathbed, he turned his face away from me. He maintained the cold, cruel mask because he never wanted me to discover the disgusting truth. He was willing to die alone and hated, carrying the heavy, dirty secret to his grave to protect my innocent mind. I fell to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. I looked down at my hands. I thought about my beautiful, sweet baby Lily sleeping in the next room. She was the innocent, tragic product of this twisted, dark revenge. She was a child born from a nightmare. My heart broke completely. I finally understood the massive, crushing weight of my father's tragic sacrifice. He was the greatest, most selfless man I had ever known. But the nightmare was not over. Suddenly, I heard loud, arrogant footsteps echoing in the hallway downstairs. The monster had finally arrived to claim his prize. I wiped my tears and walked out of the study. Julian was standing in the grand hallway. He was wearing an expensive suit. Two serious lawyers stood behind him. Julian looked at the beautiful mansion with greedy, evil eyes. He smiled brightly when he saw me standing at the top of the stairs. "Hello, sister," Julian said with a sick, cruel laugh. He knew I had found the truth. "I heard the old man is finally dying. I came to claim my legal inheritance. I am his firstborn son. I own everything now. Your company, your money, and this entire mansion. If you try to stop me," Julian threatened darkly, "I will call the newspapers. I will tell the whole world that we slept in the same bed. I will tell everyone that your daughter is a freak. I will destroy your reputation completely. Hand over the keys, Chloe." He thought he had won the final game. But I was not a weak, crying girl anymore. I was a mother protecting her child. I walked slowly down the stairs. I did not look afraid. I pulled a thick, official legal document from my pocket. I handed it directly to his lawyers. "You are too late, Julian," I said with a cold, strong voice. "My father was much smarter than you." The lawyers read the document quickly. Their faces turned pale. "This is a legally binding, updated final will," the lawyer whispered to Julian. "Richard left absolutely nothing to you. The entire estate, all the money, and this mansion are left to baby Lily," the lawyer explained. "And Chloe is named as the sole, absolute controller of the trust." Julian's arrogant smile vanished instantly. His face turned bright red with furious anger. His perfect revenge plan was suddenly crumbling. "But that is not all," I said, pulling another file from my bag. "I also found my father's private investigation files. I have absolute proof of your offshore bank accounts, the ghost projects, and the money you embezzled from our company. It is major corporate fraud. The police are already on their way." Julian panicked. He tried to run toward the front doors, but the bright blue and red lights of police cars were already flashing outside the windows. The heavy doors opened, and armed officers rushed inside. They grabbed Julian and locked tight metal handcuffs on his wrists. He screamed angrily as they dragged him away. I watched the police cars drive away into the dark night. The evil monster was finally gone, and my daughter was completely safe. I walked slowly back upstairs to the quiet master bedroom. I sat beside my father's bed and held his cold, frail hand very gently. "I know everything, Daddy," I whispered, kissing his fingers. "I know what you sacrificed for me. You are a good man. I love you so much." My father did not open his eyes, but a single, peaceful tear rolled down his cheek. He took one final, quiet breath and finally rested in peace.